What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Newbin Network. Today we are going over my Warlock Healer build. This is the build that I use when I'm playing most of the content, most of the in-game dungeons. So if you're looking to make a new class and you want to be a support character, i.e. the Warlock Healer, the Hellbringer, definitely give this video a check. It should help you out. So with the recent changes to Warlock Healer, it has now become one of the best healers that you can find in the game. It has crazy hot heals out of 2 out of 3 skills that you'll be using 99% of the time. There's a couple of changes that you can make based off the content and the group that you're in, but it is a fantastic healer. Not only do you have massive and huge heal over times, but again, with the changes, you also now are able to apply shields. So with that being said, you can now heal like a cleric while also provide shields to your tank or other members in the party like a paladin. Depending on which feat you choose, whether it's the Fey Pact or the Hell Pact, will greatly change how your Warlock heals. For now, we're going to be focusing on Fey Pact. If you want to know the build for Hell Pact, which is going to be the shielding Warlock, definitely leave a comment in the video and I'll make a video for that. There's many of different ways that you can build the Warlock and many of different encounters, dailies, and at wills that you can use. But these are my encounters, my daily and at will. We'll go over with Vampiric Embrace being one, Revitalize, and Warlock's Bargain. Warlock's Bargain is going to be the encounter that you're going to use when you're running low on your Soul Weave. You're going to pop this. Once you pop this, you're going to instantly get some Soul Weave back for you to be able to cast maybe 2 to 3 more heals depending on how hard you're spamming your skills, as well as going to increase your outgoing healing. Your next skill is going to be Revitalize. Now, Revitalize is going to be your spot heal. This is going to be the heal that you're going to have to aim. Not a lot of people like that. This is why this could be a choice for you to change it. You can go with something, instead of Revitalize, you can go with like Pillar of Power, which is something you'll drop on the ground. Your teammates, your DPS will jump in it. They'll get more damage. Your tank will jump in it. They'll get damage reduction. And lastly, it's going to be your bread and butter of the whole build. It's going to be Vampiric Embrace. Vampiric Embrace got the biggest change out of all of the Warlock's encounters. This one is going to be an AoE heal, which, as you can see, it reaches 80 feet. It's going to hit everybody in the room, everybody in the dungeon, everybody in the area. It's going to hit them with a 200 magnitude heal, and then it's going to be a hot heal over 250 for 12 seconds. This is going to be your bread and butter. So this is not a skill that you're going to be spamming, right? You're going to pop this once to give everybody a heal, and if you need emergency heals, you ideally want to use Revitalize for that. Like I said before, with Fey Pact, this is going to be the straight healing, right? So if you read Vampiric Embrace, Revitalize, Soulstorm, and Inspirit now bestows a heal over time. This is what makes Vampiric Embrace and Revitalize so good. So ideally, the way you want to use this in combat is you're going to pop your Revitalize, like I mentioned earlier, get the 12 seconds heal over time. It's going to be technically 3 heals. It's going to be an immediate heal of 200, then a heal to self and allies of another 600, and then another 250 magnitude heal over 12 seconds. And then Revitalize is going to do the exact same thing with slightly different magnitudes for another 12 seconds. So you're going to have 2 hot heals over 12 seconds. But like I said, in case you do panic heal, start spamming your heals, you then have Warlock's Bargain that you can fall back on, get yourself some Soul Weave back, and then get that little boost in outgoing healing. I don't use it in the clip because I manage my heals properly. Like I said, pop the Revitalize, pop the Vampiric Embrace, and I'm good to go. All right, that's enough on the encounters. I hope you got it. Those are pretty simple, easy to use, and like I said, those are the bread and butter of the healing side. On to the dailies. There's 2 dailies that you can use. You have Soul Barrier and Soul Pact. Soul Barrier is going to be the one you're most likely going to stick with 99% of the time. Soul Barrier does a mitigation, 10% to be exact. This daily is cast on your location. So wherever you're standing, that's where the barrier is going to spawn in at and do its thing. As well as it's going to have a 252 magnitude healed on top of that damage mitigation. Which, if you pair that with Revitalize as well as a Vampiric Embrace, you're just going to have massive heals going on. Now, Soul Pact is almost like Soul Barrier. The only difference is, obviously, there's not a barrier that puts up, but you still get that 10% damage resistance, that mitigation, and then you get that huge 800 magnitude heal. The downside to it is you lose 1% of your maximum hit points every second. But it does not matter because, again, with our feet, we have the hot heals coming from like Revitalize or Vampiric Embrace if we popped those recently. And if we are needing to go to our daily, we most likely did. So that negative of losing our hit points is negated by Revitalize and Vampiric Embrace. Onto our class feats. Now, the class feat that you're going to want to use 99% of the time, pretty much 100% of the time, is going to be Soulbound. And what this does is allows whenever an ally within 30 drops below 50% health, they receive a 300 magnitude heal. That comes from our Life Spark, which is our mechanic that happens naturally, not nothing you have to cast or anything, which this casts a heal automatically on wounded parties. So these two pair very nicely together, Soulbound. The second one I have, which is definitely optional, is Shadow Walk. There's nothing saying you have to have this one. This one is optional. You can go with any other option in here, but I chose the Shadow Walk just for the 2.5% crit strike. The build needed just a little bit of crit strike, and this is where I found it from. But any of these other options could definitely work for you. I mean, I wouldn't use Dust to Dust because you're not a damage dealer, but you could go with it. Now onto our feats. So the feats are what's going to make or break your build. Choosing them wrong or incorrectly will make it so your healing is harder to do, or it can make it where your healing is easier to do. The first option I choose here is Essence of Power. What Essence of Power does is anytime you're dealing damage, you're going to be regenerating Soulweave. And this is your bread and butter. That's the resource for healing. The option you can choose outside of that is Essence of Time. It's not a good option. It could be, but it's not the best option. It depends on your playstyle. Essence of Time is anytime you're not using Soulweave, allows you to regenerate, and it builds over time. Every 3 seconds, it builds over time. So it's not something you're going to do, especially if you have to spam heal, you'll lose the ability to regen. This is why I chose Essence of Power. The second feat is going to be Soul Reclamation. What this is going to do is anytime you drop below 30 Soulweave, which again is your resource for healing, is going to stop healing with In-Spirit, which is doing a 300 magnitude heal every so many seconds. It is going to increase the rate in which your Soulweave regens. Now, it's not super fast, it's not super quick, but what it will do is just allows you that little bit more cushion to cast heals as long as you are casting at a reasonable rate and not spamming. The third feat we're choosing is Soul Theft. We chose Soul Theft because it's better than the other option, which is Over Soul, which just makes you do more damage the more Soulweave you have. Again, we're healing. We're not really meant to be outputting huge numbers of damage, so this is not really beneficial. But what Soul Theft does for you is every 10 seconds you take a hit, you regain 25 Soulweave, which again is our resource for healing, so in a little bit helps. Our fourth feat is going to be From the Brink. It's also going to be better than our other option, Bright Spark. Bright Spark is just anytime you use it daily, it's going to increase the magnitude heal of In-Spirit by 300. And again, our In-Spirit's only healing one person every so many seconds, so it's not really beneficial for the team. However, From the Brink is, right? From the Brink is anytime you're healing somebody that's under 25% of their maximum hit points, our heal to them is going to be increased by 15%, right? So that affects our daily, that affects Revitalize, that affects Vampiric Embrace, and our last feat. The last feat is the one that's going to determine whether you're giving out massive heals or you're giving out massive shield. Now, I have a completely different setup for shields. You can mix the two if you want. I would recommend it because both options, whether it's Fate Pact or Hell Pact, are phenomenal in their own builds, but you can have the best of both worlds. You'll be a jack of all trades and a master of none. But for this build, we're going with Fate Pact, which I mentioned earlier, gives us Vampiric Embrace, Revitalize, Soulstorm, and In-Spirit the ability to do heals over time. And that is what allows us just to give out heals, heals, heals. Okay, next we'll look at enchantments, mounts, and companions. There's many different options and many different combinations that you can use. I'll show you mine. They may not necessarily work for you, and you may not necessarily have what I have. However, for a healer, you want to focus on your power, your crit strike, your crit save, and your outgoing healing. Once we get through all this, I will buff up. I'll show you a little bit, and you'll be able to have all of your healing stats, which again is your power, crit strike, crit save, outgoing healing at 90%. My first enchantment is a Celestial Cobalt. I'm using that there for the 2700 crit save. Second one, Celestial Moonstone, power. Not so much as the combat advantage. I only needed just a little bit of power. So this is where I'm getting it from. And then my third one is a Social Garnet. Again, for just a little bit more power. There's many of different ways that you can find power in this game. So again, don't follow this build to a T, but get more of a general idea for it. And my last one is also a Garnet. In the utility slot, I do have a Celestial Opal, which this is giving me 14 outgoing healing. You'll see in my stats when I go down to outgoing healing, I'm not using this for the outgoing healing, but I am using it for the forte. We'll go over forte in a little bit. For defense, I am running 4 Celestial Garnets just to improve my defense just a little bit more. For my overloads, I do not put overloads in there usually. I usually have for the particular dungeon that I'm in, so these usually stay open, right, until I need something in particular. For my combat enchantment, I'm using a Celestial Divine Aegis, which does some behind the scenes work for my healing, which gives my overall outgoing healing another 9%. We'll talk over that again once we go into stats. And then for my bonus enchantment, I'm using a Celestial Action Point bonus. This just allows me to get my action point 6% faster in case I need to use it daily. For my companion gear, I'm using 3 Molten Icons of the Companion, which is going to give me another 1650 in Forte, another 1650 in outgoing healing. Again, I didn't need that much outgoing healing. I mainly got these for Forte. And again, like I said, we will go over that. And if you don't need either one of those, you also have the Molten Necklace of the Companion, which gives you 1650 in crit strike and 1650 in outgoing healing. Again, like I said, there's multiple ways that you can build this. So definitely see what your character needs instead of just taking this build for what it is. To get to this, this is in the Mount Hope Now campaign store, right? So if you just go to campaigns, Mountain of Flames, hit square or whatever button it is for you for the campaign, open the campaign store, go to companion gear, and this is where you could find your companion gear. And then obviously I have a Celestial Companion enhancement. Now for my companion enchantment, I do flip-flop back and forth what I may need depending on what the tank has. So I usually stick around with dual senses because the tanks usually use an armor break, but you can use whatever helps your group out. For my companion gear, this is the same thing like the mount and the mount insignias and the companion and the enchantments will be. Again, figure out what works best for you. If you have everything I have, then yes, you can copy and paste it and you'll be fine. But if you don't, see what I'm doing, see why I'm doing it, and then try to make what you have work in that area. So for my offensive slot, I'm using the Raptor. Now this only works for me when I'm in a group. When you're in a group with full Raptors, you get 18% power. So that actually caps out my power. When I'm not in a group and I'm soloing, I then will switch over to the Baby Deep Crow or something comparable to it, which then gives me 7.5% power. In my defensive slot, I have the Golden Bullet Pup. This is a very expensive companion, but it is a necessary one of the necessary ones. Again, if you don't have the Golden Bullet Pup, you could go with the Proud Pink Yeti, which also gives you the 7.5. If you have neither one of those, again, you're only worried about your power, crit strike, crit save, and outgoing healing. Figure out what you have and what works best for you. In my utility slots, I'm running with the Cunning Hunter, which this one is a interesting companion. This one gives me equipped 3.8% Forte, and because I'm a healer, it also gives me 3.8% outgoing healing. For my second universal slot, I'm going with the Quickling, which is giving me 3.8% crit strike and 3.8% outgoing healing. And lastly, I have the Divine Answer, which is in my utility slot, which is just like the Cunning Hunter. It's giving me 3.8% Forte and 3.8% outgoing healing. Onto the mounts. So my combat power and my equip power, they change frequently. My combat power probably stays the same more than my equip power. But again, do what works for you and what works for your group. My equip power does change quite frequently depending on the tank. I can have Runic Ore, Mystic Ore, Pack Tactics, things like that, depending on what the tank is. Make sure we're not doubling up because a lot of these things do not stack. As far as my combat power goes, I try to find something that either A, has the most buffs for the group, or B, the most utility. So here I'm using Hot Streak, which does a little bit of damage. Again, I'm a healer, so that doesn't really matter too much. But what it does do is it gives a 15% increase in damage taken to the enemy. So when I pop that, it hits the enemy, then they take 15% more damage, which is obviously going to be used during the artifact call. For my stable, I'm not going to go over it too much. You can see what I'm using. I'll scroll through them so you guys can see the different insignias that I'm using. This is something that's very customizable, really dependent on what you have available to you, and what you don't have available to you is how your stable is going to be built. When it comes to the insignia bonuses, again, those are also customizable. My insignia bonus right now are set up in such a way that it caps out the stats that I have. So again, I know I've said it a million times already in this video, but If you have what I have, you can copy and paste and you'll be all set. If you don't, figure out what you do have, make the stats meet, use whatever signature bonuses are available to you, and I promise you'll have a decent healer. Now for the part that most of y'all have been probably waiting on is my gear. I'll go over this fairly quickly. My headpiece, I'm using an enchanted depth cured coif. This is coming from Mount Hodenau, so this is going to be coming from the new dungeon. This is a specialty piece. This caps out my outgoing healing, but it takes 60 seconds roughly to get there. So you don't have to go with this piece. There's a couple of different options that you can have. You can go with something with like crit strike and then find outgoing healing somewhere else. You can go with the MTOS helmet, which gives you soul regen, which we've talked about that already. You have the ultraviolet elven coif, which is exactly like the one I'm currently wearing. This is just one mod behind. For my chest piece, I'm using the enchanted depth cured leathers, which this is giving me crit strike and crit sev 1.5% for 15 seconds every time I do damage. And this also includes your heals. So you don't have to technically hit something. You can heal somebody. And because we have hot heals, this is up all the time, right? So this chest piece gives my crit strike and crit 7.5% a piece, right? That's the important part, a piece. For my arms, I'm going with the enchanted depth cured armlets. Nothing really special about this outside of the fact that, again, it increases my maximum amount of soul weave. Again, I've mentioned this before as well. Soul weave is our main resource to healing. So the more of that we have, the more heals we can pop out. My weapons, I'm using the Void Touch, which comes from MIC. The main thing about these weapons, which makes them decent, is that we get a 5% increase to our overall outgoing healing. And I'll go over that outgoing healing again. The set bonus, it's niche. It's for boss fights, really, but I use it all the time because I can benefit from that overall outgoing healing, whether I'm in single target or AoE. However, the set bonus is for when you're in single target. For my boots, I'm using the Enchanted Depth Cure boots. This also gives me some more soul weave regen. As you can see, a lot of my build is geared around to having my soul weave up as much as possible so I can heal as much as possible. And then we also get the added bonus of having an additional 3.5% outgoing healing. For my artifacts, I'm using Arturia's Resonating Music Box, Beacon of Meteor Swarm, Portable Spelljammer Detector, and the Zealous Blast Scepter. Again, for the artifacts, use whatever you have to max out your stats. Most of these are being maxed out for stats. The only one that's not is my main artifact, which is there for that, again, 15% the damage resistance to the enemy, lowering that. For my neck and waist set, I'm using the Portable Detector set. This set is very good for healers due to the fact of anytime we use an encounter power, we do get Forte in the outgoing healing. Don't care about that combat advantage, but I do care about the Forte and outgoing healing. We get up to 7 stacks mats. And again, with having hot heals, that stays up and is almost up 100% uptime. For my rings, these are coming from MIC as well. The Red Dwarf Ring of Xeraxis, this just gives me 7% more power, as well as the Brilliant Band of Xeraxis, which gives me 1.2% outgoing healing for every member of my team. So that's a nice chunk right there. Those are rings, like I said, from MIC. They have to be upgraded. So when you go for these rings originally, they will only be at legendary quality. You have to upgrade them. It takes a little bit of time. You got to run the campaign, got to get the currency. But again, if you don't have those, there's multiple different options out there that you can run. This is the original version of that ring. I'm actually getting it for another healer. They actually come in epic, not legendary. But there's several other rings you can have. There's the Opal Abyssal Loop, which makes your heals more potent. I mean, there's several different options. You could even go with Illustrator's Grace, which reduces the enemy's defense and awareness. So there's options for a healer. We're not bound so much. For my shirt, I'm using an Embered Burned shirt. This is, again, another big boost to my outgoing healing. And then for the pants, I have the Ember Stitch pants, which is just giving me straight crit strike 5%. As long as I keep my stamina over 75%. And 99% of the times as a healer, you're probably standing still. For my buffs, I'm just using things that are going to go ahead and close out my stats for me. So the Flask of Potency, not using it for anything other than a crit sev, just another additional 5% crit sev for 1,800 seconds. This does go away if you die. So if you're dying in combat, you want to make sure you're also reapplying this in combat. If not, you're going to lose that crit. Then I also have the Mochi. This is an event food. This is something you can get from the auction house. You can get all these from the auction house except for the Zurich, which is a stronghold food. but the Mochi is giving me another 5% power and another 5% maximum hit points. So that's just a little cushioning there. The Zerk, which is another big boost outgoing healing, is 4,000 rating. Okay, that's 4,000 rating, not percentage. So if you're missing percentage, this isn't going to help you. If you're missing rating, this is going to help you. 4,000 outgoing healing, and another 20,000 maximum hit points for another 1,800 seconds. This one actually does persist through death. And then the last one is a Wildstorm Elixir. This is giving me 2,000 crit strike and another 5% crit sev for 3,600 seconds. This also persists through death. So the Wildstorm Elixir and the Zerk persist through death, and then the Mochi and the Flask of Potency, they do not. So if you die, you do have to reapply those two. Okay, so I went ahead and buffed, used all my potions, elixirs, stronghold food, event food that we just went over. And these are what my stats are sitting at now without being in combat. So 72% power, 87% crit strike, 87% crit sev, Forte sitting at 71%, and my outgoing healing is sitting at 86%. So if I pop these guys, which are going to pretend as if we're in a team, not all of my gear will proc because they do and don't work properly for showing as team. Pop an enemy real quick. I'm now currently in combat. Actually, let me hit him real quick. I'm now in combat, so you'll watch my power start to rise. That's coming from my helmet, as well as that's also rising my outgoing healing, which is going to get really close to capping prior to doing anything else. And then if I hit this guy with an attack real quick, which is going to heal those guys, my crit strike, crit sev go to 90, and my outgoing healing sitting at 90. And then with the Raptor, right, the 18%, I would also be sitting at 90. So that's that simple, a simple move. Or you can just heal these guys. Boom, same thing. It'll still be sitting at 90, 82% with the outgoing healing, or 82% with the power. Forte 72, outgoing healing is at 90. And it's that simple. And the way you're going to want to heal the rotation, right, I say, you're going to go ahead and use Revitalize, Vampiric Embrace, and then you can just watch these guys heal. It's just going to be ticking, just nonstop ticking, nonstop ticking. The number is low because I don't have that full power. If I was in a full group, the heal amount would be much higher than that, but this is the only way I can show it. But the rotation is that simple. All you got to do is use it every 12 seconds. And if you're in combat, you pop these guys off. Right now I have 12 seconds. Don't have to use it for any other time. And while I'm hitting, I'm regenning my Soulweaver, as you can see, right? Go over here, pop it again. Boom. They get that heal. There's the hot heals. I'm just going to keep attacking. They're going to keep healing up. When I see those heals stop, then I can just hit it again. I'll be probably pretty close to having max Soulweave by the time that stops healing them. But that's as simple as the rotation goes. There's stopped healing, pop it again, boom, and I just keep attacking. This is literally all you're doing as the Warlock Healer. That simple. And again, like I said, if you had the teammates, the legit teammates, you would actually have the 90% power. So I do hope this video helps you guys out there who are trying to build Warlock Healers. They're a lot of fun. They're easy healers. They get the job done. And like I said, with the rework, I can now also shield. I can pop shields on these guys with my at will. So your tank could have full shields. Look up, shield myself. The possibilities with a Warlock Healer is endless. If you guys have any questions or need any help, definitely leave a comment in the video. I'll do my best to help you out. And if you want to see the shielding version of this healer, definitely leave that also in the comments below, and I'll make a video for that.